President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi agreed to upgrade Seoul-Tokyo cooperation on supply chains amid the ongoing Middle East conflict, as well as in securing crude oil and LNG supplies. Samsung Electronics and its union are struggling to narrow their differences over performance-based bonuses on Tuesday, the last day of the second government-led negotiations. U.S. President Donald Trump said he is delaying a military strike on Iran that had been planned for Tuesday, citing what he called serious negotiations aimed at ending the war, as Washington also moved to once again permit purchases of Russian oil to support countries vulnerable to the global energy crisis. We begin in Andong City tonight, where President Lee Jae-myung is hosting Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. The summit wrapped up earlier today with a pledge to tighten Seoul-Tokyo cooperation on supply chains and procurement of crude oil and LNG. For more, we go live to Andong with our Moon Hae-ryun standing by. Hae-ryun, walk us through the summit's key outcomes first, please.
Good evening, Tammy. So I'm standing close to the summit venue where talks between President Lee and Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi wrapped up this afternoon after covering a wide range of issues. And during the press conference, the joint press conference, immediately following the talks, both leaders emerged with a very clear message that South Korea-Japan cooperation on, energy and supply chains has never been more urgent, especially with the situation in the Middle East that's been cited as a key driver.
지난 3월 체결된 LNG 수급 협력 협약서를 바탕으로 양국 간 LNG 협력을 확대하는 한편 원유 수급 및 비축과 관련한 정보 공유와 소통 채널 또한 심화해 나가기로 하였습니다.
Prime Minister Takaichi further added that she and President Lee had agreed to launch mutual supply arrangements and swap transactions covering crude oil, petroleum products, and LNG. On security, the two sides reaffirmed the importance of their trilateral cooperation with the United States, welcoming the recent elevation of bilateral security consultations to the vice ministerial level. Both leaders also highlighted the signing of a police cooperation memorandum on transnational scam crimes and agreed to continue discussions on AI and economic security. President Lee expressed hope for future-oriented cooperation as both sides mark the 60th anniversary of normalized relations this year, while Prime Minister Takaichi ended on a lighter note by inviting President Lee to Japan for the next meeting.
Now, Hae-ryun, the Japanese PM will be here in the country until tomorrow. What's on the agenda for Takaichi during the rest of her stay here in South Korea?
So the dinner banquet immediately following the talks, featuring a wide range of dishes and drinks that's local to the city of Andong, is still underway, but the two leaders are set to enjoy a traditional performance of pansori, which is a Korean narrative opera at the local heritage UNESCO site of Hae Folk Village. Now, this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as I mentioned earlier, and this is also a popular tourist site. Now, as I continue, this is also President Lee has also prepared a set of gifts for Prime Minister Takaichi that is rooted in Andong's cultural heritage, and is each chosen to symbolize the history and friendship between the two countries. The reason why there is so much focus being placed on the culture and cuisine of the city is because this is President Lee's hometown, and this visit from Prime Minister Takaichi is a direct reciprocation of his trip to her home prefecture of Nara earlier this year, making it the first time the two countries' leaders have exchanged hometown visits.
I'm very pleased to meet with President Lee again here in Andong, his hometown. By continuing shuttle diplomacy without delay, first in Nara and now here in Andong, I feel that the friendship and trust between us have grown even deeper.
So after wrapping up her trip with a night of immersion in Andong's cultural heritage, Prime Minister Takaichi will be returning to Japan tomorrow. That's all I have for tonight, so back to you, Tammy.
All right, Hae-ryun, thank you for your coverage. Now, in other news, Samsung Electronics and its labor union remain locked in last-minute talks, with no final outcome announced past the expected 7 p.m. deadline. Now, the National Labor Relations Commission said it's expected to either help the two sides reach an agreement or submit a formal mediation proposal at around 10 p.m. tonight. The two sides have been trying to hash out a deal on performance-based bonus payments before an 18-day strike scheduled to begin on Thursday. Now, the key dispute centers on how to fund and distribute performance bonuses. So the union wants a larger bonus pool based on operating profit, while management is pushing to maintain the current performance-based compensation system. The planned walkout involves nearly 48,000 unionized workers. Ahead of the final round of negotiations on Tuesday, Industry Minister Kim Jong-un stressed that the planned walkout must be prevented at all costs, noting concerns over the severe economic fallout it could trigger. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's called off a planned strike on Iran following appeals from Gulf allies, adding that serious negotiations are now underway to prevent further escalation. Jo Young-un reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Monday that he had suspended a military strike on Iran that had been scheduled for Tuesday. The decision reportedly came as serious negotiations toward a peace agreement were underway. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said he had been asked to halt the strike by leaders of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. president said the pause was considered very acceptable to the U.S. and countries in the Middle East, but stressed that there would be no nuclear weapons for Iran.
I put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a little while, because we've had very big discussions with Iran, and we'll see what they amount to. I was asked by...
Trump's remarks came as Tehran reportedly submitted a revised 14-point peace proposal through Pakistani mediators. A Pakistani source which has conveyed messages between the two sides since hosting the peace talks last month confirmed that Islamabad had delivered the latest proposal to Washington. Iranian state media earlier reported that Washington had failed to offer any concrete concessions to Tehran.
Therefore, from the very day after we sent our points to the American side via Pakistan, we were faced with a series of proposals from the other side which have been reviewed over the past few days. As was announced yesterday, our own views have in turn been conveyed to the American side.
The latest response came after Trump warned Sunday that the clock is ticking for Iran to accept a peace agreement, saying that there won't be anything left of them if Iranian leaders did not get moving fast. Tehran, meanwhile, says its current focus is entirely on reaching an agreement to end the war, adding that detailed discussions on nuclear issues have not yet taken place, leaving it as one of the key sticking points in the negotiations. Jo Young-un, Arirang News.
Iran has launched a Bitcoin-backed insurance service for Iranian shipping companies operating through the Strait of Hormuz. According to a report by Iran's Fars news agency citing documents from the country's Ministry of Economy and Financial Affairs, the insurance platform called Hormuz Safe offers Iranian shipping firms and cargo owners fast, verifiable digital insurance. Now, Iran has also launched the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, which is a formal body to manage the Strait of Hormuz, collect transit fees, and designate approved shipping routes. The Iranian government aims to generate more than $10 billion in revenue through the insurance service. In the meantime, the Trump administration is granting another 30-day extension to a sanctions waiver, allowing purchases of Russian seaborne oil to support energy-vulnerable nations affected by the Iran conflict. Our Kim Jun-hong has more.
The U.S. has extended for another 30 days a sanction waiver allowing purchases of Russian seaborne oil for what it called energy-vulnerable countries amid growing uncertainty surrounding the Iran war. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a post on X Monday that Washington is issuing a new 30-day general license. This will allow any country to purchase Russian oil and petroleum products stranded on tankers after the previous waiver expired on Saturday without violating U.S. sanctions on major Russian energy firms. The waiver is the second 30-day extension since the measure was first introduced in March. It also reverses earlier plans by the Treasury chief not to grant another extension after he said last month that no further renewal was under consideration. According to Reuters, the latest waiver came at the request of vulnerable countries unable to secure Gulf oil shipments due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Bessent added that the measure would reroute existing oil supplies toward nations most in need and enable countries to compete with China for the previously sanctioned oil. Meanwhile, international oil prices swung sharply the same day Washington announced its latest sanctions relief measure as markets reacted to rapidly evolving developments surrounding the Iran war. The global benchmark Brent crude briefly climbed above $112 a barrel, up 2.6% from the previous session and marking its highest level in about 2 weeks. Prices later pulled back below $109 after U.S. President Donald Trump said he would hold off on a planned military strike against Iran at the request of regional allies. Kim Jun-ho, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is paying a 2-day state visit to China starting today. His summit meeting with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping will take place tomorrow on Wednesday. And on their agenda is economic and energy cooperation as well as the war in Ukraine. In a video address ahead of his departure, Putin claimed the two countries will support each other on issues of sovereignty and national unity, hinting at strategic partnership with regard to issues surrounding Ukraine and Taiwan. Meanwhile, Russia's presidential aide Yuri Yushakov has rejected all talks of relevance between Putin's visit to Beijing this week and Donald Trump's visit to Beijing last week. Local elections here in South Korea are entering a decisive phase with 2 days left till official campaigning begins. Now, with that, the National Election Commission has stressed strict guidelines ahead of the intense period. For details, we have our political correspondent An Sung-jin here in the studio. Welcome back, Sung-jin.
My pleasure to be here.
So, Sung-jin, I've heard you prepared 3 different keywords to go over the latest details. I heard the first one is the end of candidate registration. Let's start with that.
Right, so let's start with that. Just as you mentioned, as official candidate registration closed last week, nearly 8,000 candidates registered for this local election and parliamentary by-election. And among them, more than 500 are expected to secure victory uncontested. Now, according to the National Election Commission, roughly 13% of the electoral districts had only a single registered candidate. This includes 3 heads of local governments and around 100 constituency-based Metropolitan Council members. This figure marks the second highest number of uncontested victories since local elections were introduced, the highest number of uncontested winners being the second local elections when 738 candidates were elected unopposed. However, the final figure could still shift if candidates withdraw before Election Day, but the unusually high number of automatic wins has already hinted at political competition and regional party dominance ahead of the June 3rd vote. Now, at the same time, the average candidate-to-seat ratio stood at 1.841 to 1, the lowest on record, slightly lower than the 2022 local elections when it marked 1.843 to 1.
So now that the official candidate registration has ended, that will lead to ballot printing, which is the second keyword. What is that about?
Right, so the second keyword is ballot printing, just as you mentioned, and as official registration is finished, now we are moving to ballot printing for the local and parliamentary by-elections, officially beginning on May 18th. Now, this means that candidate names will effectively be on voting papers. This entails that the first deadline has passed for rival camps to unify contenders in a closely fought districts, since names are already on ballots, pressuring split votes. For several competition regions, including the parliamentary by-elections for Busan Bukap District and Pyeongtaek-ul, this may signal that they will not be forthcoming with a unified candidates. Now, as the ballot printing process begins, voters arriving at polling stations will receive up to 8 separate ballots for mayors and provincial governors, education superintendents, heads of local governments such as district chiefs and county governors, and in districts holding parliamentary by-elections, voters will receive 1 additional ballot for a total of up to 8 ballots. And now, to help avoid confusion, each ballot will be printed in a different color.
I see. Then now that will lead to official campaigning. I mentioned we are left now with only 2 days till official campaigning kicks off. How is the process looking to unfold this time?
Right, so political parties really are racing as time really kicks in for the official campaigning on May 21st. This means that election campaigning will continue up until June 2nd, 1 day before Election Day. Now, during this 13-day campaign period, candidates may deliver public speeches and hold debates between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., though loudspeakers and recording equipment will only be permitted until 9 p.m. Election authorities also reiterated strict regulations against election misinformation, especially the creation or distribution of deepfake campaign materials, which have been banned for 90 days before the vote. Spreading false information or defamatory posts about candidates on social media could also result in legal penalties. With the local elections around 2 weeks away, we will continue to see political parties racing against time once the official campaign kicks off.
The next 2 weeks still look busy at the National Assembly and loud on the streets. Sung-jin, thank you for the coverage tonight.
Thanks for having me, Dami.
The conflict in the Middle East has a renewed global interest in South Korea's air defense capabilities, prompting the Air Force to give reporters a rare access to a live demonstration of its missile defense system. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung files this report.
With loud sirens signaling the detection of an enemy ballistic missile launch, personnel from the Missile Defense Command sprint to the Cheongung-II launcher. Through swift procedures, the system is brought to full launch readiness within just 10 minutes. This is the Cheongung-II system that responded to Iran's large-scale combined ballistic missile attacks during the Iran war earlier this year. As you can see, each vertical launcher has 8 interceptor missiles. With the control center pressing the simulated launch button, the virtual ballistic missile on the radar disappears instantly, marking the end of the successful drill. The Cheongung-II system is one of the key components of South Korea's multi-layered missile defense network. After recording 29 successful interceptions out of 30 launches during the U.S.-Iran war, the system has attracted attention from many countries in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and South America. Cheongung-II is emerging as a viable alternative to the Patriot system, thanks to its lower missile cost, significantly shorter delivery timelines, and flexible engagement capability. It uses cold launch technology, in which the missile is first ejected more than 10 meters into the air before the rocket ignites, and then turns toward its target in flight. This enables the launcher to engage targets without rotating, while minimizing the flame and blast effects on the ground and nearby equipment.
Our Cheongung-II demonstrates outstanding performance and is drawing strong international interest in exports. We conduct realistic daily training to defend South Korea against North Korea's increasingly advanced nuclear and missile threats.
Already serving as the core asset of South Korea's air and missile defense network, the system is now gaining momentum in the global defense market. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Sacheon.
The Ministry of Unification clarified on Tuesday that the phrase peaceful two states from this year's Unification White Paper is not the government's official position. A ministry official told reporters at the government complex, however, that the expression of a peaceful two states is one of the concepts the Unification Ministry has introduced to support peaceful coexistence between the two Koreas. The official reiterated that this does not mean acknowledging North Korea as a legal state. Rather, the idea is to recognize North Korea as a political entity and pursue policy on that foundation. A press conference was held earlier today at the Suwon Sports Complex ahead of the AFC Women's Champions League semifinal between Suwon FC Women of South Korea and Naegohyang FC from North Korea. Head coach Lee Yoo-il of the North Korean team said his players are ready to perform their best. And forward and Naegohyang captain Kim Kyung-young added that the team atmosphere remained positive and that her teammates will give their all in light of the expectations of their people. Now, the semifinal match between clubs of the two Koreas kicks off at 7 p.m. on Wednesday in Suwon City. The 2026 Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering kicked off here in Seoul this week, bringing together nearly 100 participants. Now, the 5-day event aims to reconnect adoptees with their mother country and foster cultural identity. Our Chung Hae-rim was there.
95 different stories from 14 different countries gathered in Seoul on Monday, the opening ceremony of the Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering hosted by OKAG marked the beginning of a powerful collective homecoming.
I do not speak Korean. I do not understand all the rules and customs of the culture, but I do eat bibimbap every chance I get. Only later did I circle back to questions of identity and origin. What I can tell you from my own experience is this: my Korean story has just begun.
For organization leaders who have dedicated their lives to supporting this community, this return represents a monumental chapter.
You will still have a need to find something that is beyond what your adoptee family can give you, because normally you will not look the same. You will find it very common to have the same kind of questions and have the same kind of doubts. So I think going back for us is a way to deal with that, and we support each other while we are here.
That ongoing journey moves straight into the heart of traditional Korean culture today. Participants gathered at Namsan-gol Hanok Village to experience a tea ceremony and an etiquette classroom, taking their first steps towards practicing customs they had never known before. For participants like Matthias from Sweden, it's also an exploration of a modern, fast-paced city.
So I've just been walking around, feeling the vibe of the city and just enjoying my time here, really. There's not really much to do back home if you're trying to go out at 11, 12 p.m., which is completely different from Seoul. So it's been really fun, and yeah, it's very different. It's still just a good chance for me to explore more and learn more about where I'm from.
Another way participants connect with their roots is through food. Separated from their birth countries from a very young age, some are even trying traditional 시장 food, such as 빈대떡, for the first time.
Whether they're searching for profound, lifelong answers to their past or simply soaking in the energy of Seoul, this gathering proves that coming home has no single predefined track. Through this event, adoptees embraced their own stories in different ways. Chung Hae-rim, Arirang News.
The early summer heat will ease with rain tomorrow, bringing temperatures back to seasonal levels. Tomorrow, highs will be around 21 degrees Celsius in Seoul and 20 degrees in Daegu. Pretty typical for this time of year. Rain is expected nationwide early tomorrow. In terms of rainfall, the mountainous areas of Jeju Island could see up to 120 millimeters. The Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces are expected to receive 10 to 60, while parts of the central regions could see as much as 80 millimeters. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 19 degrees, Daejeon at 17 degrees, Busan at 18 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 21 degrees, Chuncheon at 20 degrees, Gwangju at 23 degrees. By Thursday afternoon, most of the rain will taper off and temperatures will start to rise again. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.